But the genesis of it all is that, in a nutshell, we'll look at some data. In 1990, the school started off with the first team of KaosPilots. That took them into 93. The man Uffe Elbæk, recently Cultural Minister of Denmark, he started it all. He had an amazing team along with him that created what we do these days. He stepped down in 2000 and something. And then the new boy stepped in, and I'm going to try and pronounce it correct, but his name is Christe Vindelø Lidzelius. He's Swedish. But so the genesis for the school starts in Aarhus, Denmark. It's the second largest city in Denmark. We think of ourselves as a global school, in the idea that most of what we do is for the globe. And with that, we have these three elements here. Our mission is to be the best school for the world, in the sense that we try and do things with good thought and win-win for everyone that we work with. Our values are very simple. They're playfulness, they're real world, they're balanced, there's compassion, risk-taking, and streetwise. Now, for many people entering the school, this is sometimes bewildering because now you have to attach yourself to it. But you can think of them as a stepping stone, something to lean against stepping into this chaotic world. Our purpose, positive societal change. So we try and work with many elements to make sure that we incorporate as many things as possible. All of this leads into 3 tracks, or it's a 3-year program. In this program, we look at very new ways of doing stuff, but also a lot of traditional elements or traditional knowledge. So in sense, the education in itself is an integrative and very multidisciplinary approach. We attach a lot of things, and I'm going to try and give you some insights into it. But in the 3 years, you're basically going through around a little bit of organizational theory, development, social sciences. The anthropologies are there for understanding people. Psychology is a mix in it. There's pedagogy, there's design, and design in its broadness, where we take processes and work with them. The idea of chaos comes through within complexity theory. There's leadership that is for the individual, but also for the team that you work with. Then there's business, because one has to do business, right? There's always a sustainable element. We're working with the abstract, and sometimes it's difficult to convince people that you also have to make a living in this world. So all of this in this 3-year program makes a very chaotic person, or you're in this chaos constantly. The 3 years is from day one, or actually from when you start off, there's a lot of things that you have to take in consideration. I've put the self in chaos here because it's a transformational experience in the sense that you're having to accommodate yourself, but also accommodate the people that you work with. The education is based on a lot of team dynamics, so we learn within team. During this learning experience, there's some solids that you will get out of it. These solids is that there's a heightened concentration and focus in your works. Stimulating all senses is a kind of a prerequisite, a must. You're always very emotionally involved because the work that we do is, yes, complex or very abstract, but there's always a human factor in it. So these theories always has a human implication. And how does one work with that? So you as the person is in a process of doing or being, and that in a sense is undergoing. There's a flux about it. There's never a quiet moment. Well, sometimes. You anticipate, you consume. You have to work with the raw stuff. The education in classic moments puts you in very not so normal situations where you have to tackle things that are in one way ordinary but also very extraordinary. There's a lot of playfulness. We try not to take ourselves too seriously. We have the rule number 6. The subjects that we train are 4 pillars, 4 things that really combines how the mind works after this program. But it's business design, project design, process design, which we lean on a lot, and then leadership. And these you could also say is the brackets of how the 3 years runs in. Leadership echoes through all 3 of these. The cool thing is that we do a lot of concentration on the individual. Because you have to know your place within the team. The learning is based in this kind of team formality. There's been teams since 1991, which was team 1, and now we're up until team 20. So there's always this team, like you move through these pillars as a team. Individually you work, yes, but the learning is generated within the team. So how does one keep to that? So here, I wanted to also just take a little bit of time to introduce or give you a sense of most of the learning that happens, self or team-based, is that most things are done hands-on. So you're diving headfirst into many of these theories here. We are not getting very deep into many of them. It's always, you're getting enough to push forward, right? So from the first interaction with the school, which is the admission workshop, where students come in and they make application, get into school. That's a long story we won't get into. From day 1 already, you're working with a real client. So knowledge is really being put into flux immediately. There's real challenges, real design problems that we attack. Now the way we attack these is with trying to look at tools that are conceptual, because all the time we're working with very abstract stuff. So how does one take this abstract and nail it down into a process or a system that kind of solidifies what you're doing? So I wanted to introduce 2 tools that we use normally when we're starting off with projects. We call this one, it's been authored by the school since 20 years ago. This one here is called projecting, and classically we would think of the project in 3 stages. There's this project stage where we try and analyze and make sure that everyone is on the same table, right? So here basically we have the idea, and from that idea there's a need, and those needs always have 2 arms on the outside. There's an external, internal. So when we're looking at this, we try and clarify this and put more words onto it, put more dialogue to it. And once you've established that, you get closer to defining or having a purpose, combining the people you're working with. From this purpose comes a set of values of how do we orientate ourselves, what is our protocols. Yeah? And from there you get a very solid concept that now is something that we can start working from. From there you try and attach a team that kind of understands this track that we've gone through. And from that there we now build in structure or infrastructure. How do we do this? When do we do this? And by then you get closer to the idea of where one is in praxis. How are we doing it? Now once this is clarified in the projecting phase, which is these 1, 2, 3 elements, then we try and do something that was introduced by some clever guys in Silicon Valley. They call the Grove Consultants International, and a prolific visualizer, his name is David Sibbett, created this game plan. But why we use this is to make sure that now that when this team is organized, that we can create an overview of the entire project and make sure that 5 diverse people in this group can get a full understanding of what it is. So in the front of this arrow, or the behind of the arrow, we would list down all the team members. We'll put down there, in this kind of scenario here, we put down resources and all our competencies. Now for us to get to our vision, which is up here, there'll be a set of stages that we want to go through. So in this time of using the tool, we talk and dialogue and put down stages. We would need to, hypothetically, we want to get from Cape Town to Joburg. So there'll be some stages we have to look at. But we clarify that within the group so that we have an understanding. Now the graphic also gives you a really good idea that there will be success factors attached to these stages, but there's also challenges. And we list all of these. So this graphic is normally as big as this paper, so that we use group knowledge because the answers are always here. They're never here with me. I know a little bit, you know much more. So these graphics kind of just helps and reinforces how do we as a team move forward, yeah? So once these elements here are clarified, then we can look at primary objectives and then also other objectives attached to the project. Now once this is done, I think your team has, or your group has a very good idea of where does my competency come in, where does resources come in, and how do I fit into the team. Now with that clarified within this kind of project phase, you have a team that can be really good in performance because we've clarified, we have the same picture, and it leaves space for more challenges coming out, but at one point you have a base to work from. And in project management, when one doesn't have this kind of projecting stuff nailed down, 2 weeks, 3 weeks down the line, you have James saying, yeah, I don't want to be in here anymore. And if you could have used the projecting, you can clarify all this, kind of get people's emotions into the project. Where are we standing? Why are we doing this? These things I've forgotten, and in the beginning of the year I did a project where I didn't do this, and it bit me in the ass. And there's quite a bit of money lost within the project because of not clarifying who I'm working with or understanding what competencies were in the project. So I would recommend that you use it. This is modus operandi for us when we start off, and I hope it can inspire a little bit of how you would want to do your projects. The last bit is here, and I don't know if everyone can see it, but it's basically to give you an overview of how this model works and kind of the big parallel that I wanted to draw within how education is fostered. And leadership is the main focus here. It's the person. And then how does that person react or work within team dynamics. And within here, we concentrate on mental toughness, situational leadership, positive psychology, and the humanism in all of this. There's always a human factor in what we do. The abstractness of design is super cool for talking in weird ways, but how does it implicate us as human beings, right? And from this leadership point of view, we are able to work within these areas of innovation, entrepreneurship, creating meaning or creating motivation. Then there's two arms to it. And the one arm is strong leading into as a business school. And in the business school element, we've concentrated more on organizational or project management. How does one really look at how to do it opposed to all the financial stuff? So we have a little bit of finance in here, but we concentrate on the human factor. And then from the design school, there is an element that we try and think into experience design. How is it going to be to start from A, and what is going to be our Z at the end? And then how do we process, how do we make an experience that is both motivational and creates meaning? The world we see as a great space for opportunities, but we work within these elements of ethics, aesthetics, our commonalities as diverse peoples, and then also in creating communities. From there's this element we're always thinking about is like mastery. How does one, when you know a little bit, how does one push these boundaries to get to a point where you like a jazz musician can play at a click of a finger and go into this improv thing. So there's subject matter, there's social elements, there's change, and then there's action. How does one create all of this into action modes? And then there's me in drawing this parallel. I'm born and bred in Cape Town. The journey has been long to get to where I stand today, and then grew up in Mitchells Plain for most of as a teenage life. But anyway, then the story goes fully fast forward, and I land myself in the city, and I started working in cultural production, and that kind of perpetuated meeting someone that is now my wife and my mother of my son. And then through the application workshop landed the education. What I took with me from South Africa was this base education that one got if you matriculated in '96, which was enough. And so in this journey, I had to leave South Africa there and then move into this new world, which is Denmark, and try and live in this world that is very strange. And they do things very differently. And so there was a good mix of me having to put stuff down and then picking stuff up. And this that I picked up, I think is maybe a roadmap for South Africa, maybe a roadmap for us to rethink how we do education. And that parallel into, is it future education? I don't know. But this is a 20-year roadmap of people trying to make an education that assists the individual and makes sense of how they fit into the larger context. And that's the track. I mean, there's 20 more years and like 50,000 stories I can tell, but I'm gonna and then hand it over to you guys to ask for any clarifications or more questions. We have the track here, so you can really point me into any elements that you want to know. But thanks for listening and thanks for waking up. Thank you. I mean, classically what the alumni has been doing, and we, about a year and a half ago, we had a 20th anniversary. We 650 strong alumni, and that's from team 1 to team now. And classically these individuals find themselves in leadership positions where they're leading maybe 3-4 people, and then that spreads out to bigger. Majority of the people have taken this knowledge that they've gained and then created a sustainable business where they have very strong social challenges they're looking at, and then building a business from there. So you have many more micro businesses, which I also think is a traditional thing for Danish society. It's like smaller, where they can concentrate and be more apt at what they do, and then spread out. So there's a tradition of more, some guys going solo, guys and girls going solo, but then there's a larger group where we team up. So there's 3 KaosPilots working together within consultation, where we're working within this world here, this field of process, or change management. Many others work within arts and culture, and that crossroads of how to do it. But classically, individuals go stand on their own, because within the 3 years, you're apt enough to handle larger groups or to manifest ideas in your head. One good one I can mention is a business called KaosPilots, and it's a social innovation business started by an alumni from the team 13. Right now we're in 18, just to give you a timeline. So he was looking at a challenge within Danish society, is that the opulence allows for lots of bikes to lay around in every city. I've not bought a bike since I've been there, because there's just too many to buy a bike. So anyway, so he looked at this challenge and then built the business KaosPilots, where he started going to police stations and also looking at bikes that have been tagged and been left in a corner for long, and then souped them all up, and then started working with organizations in Rwanda, where they would sort the bikes from these aluminium China-made ones to these strong metal things. And then they took the metal bikes and then designed it to become a taxi or become an ambulance. So what his business model has been is to try and collect this opulent junk in Denmark and then transfer it into more of a functional thing within the Rwanda scenario. And then he's also fitted in that when he does go to Rwanda, that a crew then goes to teach bicycle mechanics. So it's to kind of decentralize the Danish thing and then create hubs where it's needed, opposed to the idea of aid coming to Africa. So it's trying to eradicate that idea, because it's more ownership to the persons on the ground to be able to manifest themselves, opposed to me coming in and we all know that story. So KaosPilots is really pushing itself, and they've opened in, they're now looking into Swaziland as well, where they're working with trying to design bikes from these metal ones opposed to the aluminium ones, but then also getting bikes into these desolate places within Africa to make mobility happen. There's also another smaller one I can mention. It's called Ta Deal, and that is translated into become part. And it's a member from the team that I was, and they have spent a lot of time thinking how people that want to get engaged into projects in the city, culture, arts, or theatre, how do we make this easier for them? So they've, for the past 2.5 years, created a web portal to make it easier for people, citizens in the city, to get engaged into small projects or larger projects. And right now the city is delving into winning the cultural capital of 2017, so there's a lot of micro projects happening, but also ginormous ones. And then there's jobs are not that well in the West right now. So there's lots of knowledge walking around, but not having any ways to kind of do it, right? And so this portal has now created a space for people to log in and use their competencies, and in that way keep busy until the job pops up. So we work within this kind of social thing. But there's also some peeps that have gone straight on for the cash because it's important. Yes. Again, from the genesis of the first day, I mean, also the team dynamics is that there will be strong individuals that will always jump up, right? And so there's also another side to leadership is fellowship. So we also delve in how is it that now that I have stood here for the past half a year and telling everyone how to do shit, maybe I should shut up and give space for others. So there's that dynamic where you try and you give a little and then you pull back a little bit. Because it's a rough journey. So maybe your competency and the style of leadership that you present within the first project is cool. We need to go autocratic. But then maybe in another project, you have to hum down and let's have a flat structure, because then that perpetuates a bigger project. So there's this dynamic that's going like this constantly, and also maybe a little bit more like that. But everyone does get a chance. Maybe not fully in leading a group within a project, but like self-leadership and also in smaller groups. Like the teams normally break up. They're 32 classically, and then they break into smaller groups when attacking challenges. Yeah, it's there's a small group in the city that we work with, and just to give a quickie is that the KaosPilots in Aarhus is in a very specific street called Milegel. It's number 35. They started there in 1990. The walls speak of everything that they've done. It's a space of absolute vibrance, and it informs quite a lot of the culture. It's a venue where stuff happens. Now, KaosPilots is one part. There's an element before that called Frontrunners, and a crazy group of people decided to make a rock concert in the Red Square in Russia time, right? And that kind of started this thing. But what that space, Milegel in itself, does is that all these theories that we work with kind of washes into the cultural sphere. And so what has happened is that there's a small group. Or let's put it this way, the municipality had this old train yard, enormous, beautiful building built in 18. It's been standing empty for 15 years or so. And so a small group came in, and they master cabinet makers, architects, industrial designers, some thinky maker people. And they wanted to have a space for them to realize their ideas. So they didn't get the administration building, they got the old woodwork and garage building in the back. And so, using many of these ways of clarifying why you're here, what you want to do, they started building. I mean, they got permission to use House A, which was an old mechanic's house, and that was in 2009. And so, in close connection to getting KaosPilot projects into that space and KaosPilots alumni working within that sphere, the group has managed to create what is now called Institute for X, which is a space for doing or exhibiting or playing. And they started with building A. Current day, they've accumulated building A, B, C, D, E, and F. where now that is it's a hub. And if I can draw the pictures, that is this really amazing Scandinavian clean line mush up with this old school da-da-da-da. And then boom, at the back, it's this kind of shanty town with design aesthetic that's just popped up. And so you have this beautiful conversation between really new and really old, and this beautiful symmetry between working with these kind of theories of making projects on a humanist base opposed to how Kommune is. But now we only got permission through one man in the municipality and then started the relationship with him. And from him worked the relationship to the point where he got to attach 3 other people in the Kommune, in the municipality, and then start spreading out. Where the municipality is, they would now sit down with us and talk and listen, and then we try and work from there, opposed to being the state doesn't want to do it. So we've worked closer and gone into their world, and then brought our languages and created a game plan, and now we all have a very shared meaning and a shared way of talking to make really good projects. Good question, because now it made me think. The thing and how we get here is called the outpost, and within this second track here, after your 4th semester, the school dislocates from its hub in Aarhus, and they basically take the school to a city that is interesting and drops the team into it. And so then the team needs to work with local clients, work with local initiatives, and not just try out, but manifest what we've learned in this new context. And it's easy to talk about it. It is fucking difficult in the real. My team, Team 14, we got dropped into Shanghai. We got an office similar to this with no walls, empty. And they walked us in and said, cool, it's your office, there's no heating, there's nothing, there's no internet. No one speaks Mandarin or Shanghalese or Cantonese. Left. As 4 months of this world of navigating and being thrown out of a taxi 3 times because I just wanted to get to the architecture school. But we work with clients there. And we have a current team in the city, they're Team 18, and they're working with quite a few local organizations. And some really interesting projects that I'd like you to come and check or see. We're in the other part of the city. And the outpost makes us move from city to city. The first one in 1990 was San Francisco. That team was hardcore. They were dropped in San Fran for a year and left. And then they kind of got back to Denmark. And so far it's been, the year before it's been Bogota, and then the school has changed in a bit that we try and do one city around 2 or 3 times so that the value creation is not surface but a little more deeper. Yeah? There's facilitators. William is team leader and I'm his assistant. And so there is always this strong arm of facilitation. And it's not in any way that we're teaching these guys anything. Because again, they know much more than we do. So we try and be steerers or navigators in a sense. So we've assisted in identifying, there's an empty apartment, go and get it. Or there's a client, go and get it, in that sense. There's some work that we try and do in Denmark, so that when we land, there's a time factor, so we have to work within that 3 months. So we land and there is some clients sorted out, but the team also chooses to not take on all of it in Denmark and then come to here, land and then find a client, which has happened. Nice question. There's a call for 35 students about 2 months now, wherever. About 3 months before. Like right now, I think we've got Team 20. But anyway, there's an application that is part writing but lots of action. And that gets sent into the school, and I think we had around 80 this year. And then this is the other cool thing. Students in this second track again, they assist in choosing the next team. that comes in. And in this admission, we have the application as one part, and then there's an admission workshop which is 3 days long. And so some of these elements with elements of anthropology of how to observe people, leadership, psychology and design or complexity theory is what the second year team is apt in to observe this 80 people that are coming into the application. So they go through a mini version of the 3 years in 3 days, and there's elements of how we test it, but then from that point you get into be chosen, and then when you're chosen, then you become the next team. So right now we've nailed down team 20, and they start in August. But there's this kind of, I said I wasn't going to say this, my wife says it's a cult, but anyway. So there's this kind of cultural thing that we keep. What it does is when the students are choosing these people is that you're not getting, every team has a culture specific to that team. That might, I don't know if it makes sense. Do you know what I mean? Team 14 is nothing like 18, but what we share similarities that we have this kind of base within us all. I also found when I was done with the school, I was like an alien to everyone I was working with, because when I was talking, people were like, what the fuck? And so like after that 3 years, you kind of try and unlearn everything you've learned and then make it into praxis. Because it's a little bit understand your cop when you're in this thing. Yes?
You mentioned sort of seeing this model as a blueprint for South African education. And have you thought about how that would start to translate into practice?
I only said I'm drawing a parallel. No. No, I mean there's elements within this that can be that I think could be used easily. And in no way it's to rebuild our education system, but I think in certain elements we can take them in to bonify what we're doing here already. Because it's not that it's bad in South African education. Bad word. There's challenges from our past that informs our futures, right? But there's, like, these folks have really thought very well in how to make an individual that understands bigger picture. And by knowing that the individual is key and grounded, that makes easy navigation in a way. And I don't know how much SA education allows for an holistic individual to come out. And I don't want to say too much because I don't want to shoot myself in the foot, but like here you don't get a drone coming out. You get someone that wants to impact and that wants to make impact, which is something I think globally we can learn from, not just so specific into South Africa. So there's elements that I think that could bonify what we're doing here, opposed to throwing everything away and starting from scratch. Yeah. Okay, you're gonna enjoy the sun outside? Autumn is amazing. Thanks very much. We're based in the city. We're at 36 Buitenkant. If you wanna come and play or see what the projects that we are busy with doing, please come around. We are eager to play. We are eager to share. Okay. One little thing that Team 18 members just reminded me of. We've got a very ambitious, it's going to take a small little bit of time. We've got a very big project that we're busy with. Started last year in Bogota in Colombia, and the idea was to create 100 citizen-driven interventions within the city. Bogota managed to do quite a bit, 270 to be exact. Yeah. Every Wednesday since we've landed, we have a presentation of where we are within building this 101 day. 36 Buitenkant from 6 till 8. It's action-driven workshopping. It's trying to get your idea from idea into praxis. Citizen interventions could be anything like making a zebra crossing where it's needed, because some people just drive too manically, or making dreams for a neighborhood or for a street manifested. So there's many ways that one can do this. I mean, it could be happening, it could be art-based, it could be more social-based. But we're very open to share this with you and even for you to come and help manifesting Cape Town's 101 Day. Dankie baie.